Hey guys, this is Matt. So I'm one of those people where I can usually tell you exactly how I feel about something. I'm never really on the fence about whether or not I liked a thing. That said, I have no idea how to feel about Devilman Crybaby. It did a lot of things right. I thought it had a pretty cool story and premise, some great use of tone and atmosphere. There were some really powerful scenes. I thought the final episode was excellent, and it does a really good job keeping your attention from start to finish. Overall, it's very memorable. I saw the finale about 2 weeks ago, and I still remember most of what happened. On the other hand, the pacing is ridiculous to the point where it's kind of hard to follow the plot at times. The editing's a bit sporadic, which makes the pacing seem even worse. There's some instances of characters acting without explanation. There's some plot points that I felt didn't go anywhere, didn't add anything, and overall, this show is just batshit insane. It is filled with so many insane moments that it's kind of disorienting. There's a scene in the very first episode where this chick bites off some guys' heads with her boobs. Like you see this girl with large breasts, and all of a sudden her boobs turn into monsters and start biting people's heads off. That gives you an idea of what this show is like. And by the way, boobs everywhere. This is by far the most nudity I've ever seen in a cartoon. I'm not even HBO levels of nudity. I'm talking Showgirls levels of nudity here. And they kind of dial it back in the later episodes, but for the first half of the series, it feels like you're watching Showgirls with demons everywhere. I think it would be fun to see footage of a staff meeting where they discuss how much nudity they're going to put in this series, and then some guy suggests having a chick bite some guy's heads off with their breasts. That would be interesting footage. But getting back to things that actually matter, so like I said, kind of a mixed bag for me. And as I was watching this series, I started to wonder maybe it's not so much about coherence. Maybe it's Devilman's supposed to be more of an emotional experience. And like I said, there are some very powerful moments in this series, so it does get you invested in what's going on. So maybe it's more about the experience as opposed to cohesive storytelling, but I'm not entirely sure about that. So anyway, basically we're following a guy named Akira, which seems to be a very popular name for anime protagonists. So basically, simple premise: this dude is a nerdy, weak teenager who bonds with a demon and becomes kind of like a superhero. The first half of the series is basically a superhero story. It gets a lot crazier later on. I feel like we should have spent more time with Akira before he became Devilman, getting a feel what he was like when he was fully human. You only really see him as a normal guy in like the first episode, and even then he doesn't get that much dialogue, so I feel that was a little wasted. And also I should point out that there's this really weird meta joke in this show where I guess like the original Devilman franchise exists within this world. Like you see the characters watching the original Devilman cartoon in the manga, which struck me as very odd. And also Akira has this really weird trait where whenever someone else is sad, he cries for them. Like whenever you see him crying a lot in this series, obviously, but it's also ways for like someone else, which again I thought was kind of weird, but I pretty much accepted it. And then you got his best friend and the antagonist of the series, Rio, who is clearly evil from the very first episode, yet no one seems to ever notice he's evil. This guy kind of annoyed me just because he's like the most obvious sadistic sociopath ever, and that no one ever seems to notice until the very end. If this guy was trying to hide the fact that he was a villain, he was doing the worst job ever. So, again, basically the premise, standards, you guys see this guy going around fighting demons, lots of boobs, and then about halfway through the series, the entire world realizes that demons are real, and then basically the entire planet goes to hell. Basically, the whole series is, I should put a spoiler tag here. If you don't want anything spoiled, stop watching now. The whole series is a tragedy. The structure is basically things get worse and worse and worse, and then at the end, basically the apocalypse happens and the whole planet is destroyed. So, again, cool premise. I kind of like the whole tragedy aspect, but it's just there's a lot of weird baggage you have to put up with along the way. So anyway, like I said, the final episode pretty really excellent. If this Judging by the final episode alone, this entire anime was fantastic. And then you got Rio at the end. It turns out that he's Satan, and it's the least shocking reveal of all time because he wouldn't stop acting like Satan throughout the series. Oh, and by the way, when he reveals himself to be the devil, I mean Satan, and you see him in his like satanic form, he also has boobs. This show is so pervy that they even gave the male villain of the series breasts. And I know that that was taken from the manga this was based on, but my point stands. And another criticism, I didn't think the fight scenes were that good. The animation looks pretty cool at times, but there aren't really any fights that I thought were amazing. I guess the final fight was kind of cool, but even then I've seen better. So basically, it ends with this great scene where Rio just realizes he killed his friend, and the ice cool villain of this series has a complete breakdown as you see the world being destroyed. That was great. That's what I mean when I say the series has some really powerful scenes. But again, you got to put up with a lot of ridiculous pacing and weird editing. And when I say ridiculous pacing, there's this moment that stood out to me where Devilman is like crying over some of his friends dying for 2 seconds, and all of a sudden a bunch of demons show up and he has to fight them. It kind of suffers from we have to keep throwing shit at the viewer syndrome to keep them invested, which I found annoying. That's the main reason I'm kind of on the fence about it. I feel like if it spent a little bit more time in the editing room, I would have liked it better, but as it is, I'm divided. So I guess those are all my thoughts. Devilman may or may not be a great anime, but it's definitely worth checking out so you can decide from yourself. Again, it's very memorable. A lot of stuff about this series really stuck with me, so even if you don't like it, it's worth checking out. So I guess that's all. As for what my next video will be, I just started watching Castlevania on Netflix. I'm really liking that. I might do a video about that in a few weeks, but I don't know. So anyway, thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe. Good night, everybody.